Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at how we're going to create a URL shortener. So this is a very popular tool where a long URL is changed into a short one. For example, you can consider a long URL as such. This is now a long URL. If we return back here and paste it, it's pretty long as you can see. So when you want to share links to, maybe for example this is a blog, if you want to share a link to a blog you just can't share this much and expect users to be engaging with this. So we need to create a tool that will make this process simpler by providing a shortener that will take this long URL and convert it into a short one. So for the project structure, if you see here, I just have a main.js file, an empty main.js file, and I have a package.json which I used to install Express. That's the only thing I've did, nothing more. Uh, so I also did though, I set up npm run dev with nodemon so that we can serve our main.js file with host reload. So let's just run it, and you can see there's nothing because it's empty. So npm main.js, as you can see, it's empty. Let's work. Okay, so first let's paste it here because we're going to be using this to shorten it. Uh, Next, the first thing we want to do is we want to import Express. You can say const express requires Express. Then we want to create an app, const app equals Express. Then app.listen. We want to listen on some port, for example, let's say port 4000, and on port 4000, when we connect to that port, we just want to say console.log server running on port 4000. Simple. Now if we save, we can say we have a text, a console.log that says server running on port 4000. If we now go to localhost at port 4000, we have cannot get /, that means the root. So the reason is because we don't have any route set up for their root directory. So let's create a route. Let's say app.get for the root, request response. Then we just want to say response.send. Let's say hello. And if we refresh now, we can see hello. So now that we have set up the root path, we don't want to say hello, we just need to send back a static HTML file. The reason we're doing that is we need to provide the user inputs. So the user have to provide input for us in order to us to do something with it. In this case, the user have to provide a long URL so that we can make it short. So simply put send file instead of send, and here just say pass.join underscore their name. Okay, underscore their name, and we're going to join it with the index.html file. And of course we don't have the index.html file created, so we have to go back and create that. Let's remove one parenthesis here. So what we have to do next is, before that, we have to import path from the Node.js standard library. It's a module provided by Node.js. So now let's save and get out of the file and say npm index.html. Now that we created an HTML file, we need some basic structure to it. I'm not going to use doc type or anything like that because this is very simple, and we just want to focus on the URL shortening aspect instead of the HTML. So I'm just going to have an HTML. I'm also going to have a body, and that's all I'm going to have. Now just for testing this, let's just say this is from the HTML, and let's close it. Now, if we save and refresh at localhost port 4000, we can see that it's working and the HTML file is being served. Now, instead of that, we just need to provide an h2, and we just need to tell the user provide a long URL. It doesn't have to be a long URL, it could be any URL, but let's say provide a long URL. Then we have to provide a way to do that. In our case, just an input of type text will do. Thirdly, we have to provide a button so that the user can submit. So we can say submit here. And if we save now and refresh, we have everything we need. So now let's get out of this and back to the main.js file. Here we want to create the path on which the user will be sending the request to shorten a URL, and it should be a post route. Okay, so this route will be creating an entry in the shortened URLs list, so we want to make it post. Then simply on the root path just say request response, and that's everything we need. Now we want to do some stuff. First of all, first we need to be able to accept user inputs as JSON. For that, we need to do app.use express.json. Sorry, express.json here. Now, using this middleware in Express, app.use express.json, we can basically take any we can take any user input in the form of JSON, and we can do stuff with it. So how can we access that is the question. And we can just say for example, let's say long URL, because that's what the user is sending to the server, right? So we can say long URL, and we can say request dot body. In this dot body object, every JSON input will be stored. So from that we can say URL, since from actually let's say long URL. So from the client side, we'll be sending a variable, an object with the key of long URL. Okay, now that we have the long URL, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be sending back a link such as this one, HTTP 2.5 localhost output 4000, because that's what we're running at. And we just want to say now simply uh, a random string. Let's say this, right? That's a random string, and we want to be sending this random string back. And we're going to be mapping this. That's all we're going to be doing. We're going to be mapping this short URL with the above long URL, or any URL the user inputs. So first of all, we need to generate a random string. So that's very simple. Let's say let rand. Actually, it's not going to just be a random string. It's going to be the ID of the shortened. Okay, so let's just say let ID equals uh let's say sorry, let's make it empty, and for let I equals 0, as long as I is less than 4, I plus plus. This is basic JavaScript. We want to run this for loop 4 times, and for each iteration we want to do is ID plus equals a. Okay, let's break this down to another line. So ID plus equals A B C D F G H I J K L M N O P Q R S T U V W X Y Z. So this is what we want to do. We want to add one of these letters. So from the 26 alphabetic letters, we want to add one each time the loop runs. So we randomly get one letter each time, right? So from this we just want to say math dot floor, which is uh, just a way to generate random numbers, right? Math dot floor. Then we say math dot random, then times 26 because there are 26 entries here, and this is how we generate a random number, and we make it a whole number by floating it, or making it or rounding it down to the nearest uh, lower number, and then from there we get a whole number, and we can use the whole number as the index of the letter we want to get. So now we should have a random string here in the form of, for example, it might be HGDJ. So now after we use this, uh, what we have to do is we have to create an entry for this. Okay, so first let's go up and say uh, shorten shorten URLs. Okay, so we're going to be storing all the shortened URLs here in an array. So we want to say shortened URLs dot post, sorry, dot push, and simply what we want to do is simply push an object here. So the first is we're going to call it long, and the long, actually let's call long URL. The long URL will be the long URL the user has inputted, right? So it's a one-to-one mapping, so we don't have to say long URL, long URL. So in JavaScript, if both the key and the value pairs are the same keyword, you can just forget it and just say one of them. Then we want to say short URL. It's not actually the URL, we are having an ID, so let's just say ID and it's equal to this ID. So the long URL will be mapped to this ID right here. So using this now, it's very simple. We just want to respond.json, and we don't have to make it an object. Actually, we can just say uh, actually we can just say http localhost port 4000. Then we want to say plus the ID. Okay, let's start here. Then we want to say plus the ID, meaning we are generating uh, this URL with the random ID extension here. So that's all we're doing, and we're sending it back to the user. Of course, we don't have this functionality implemented on the client side, so let's go back and do that. So let's open index.html, and then index.html. From there, what we have to do is very simple. We just need to create a script tag, and you can do this in an external JavaScript, by the way. I'm just doing this to make it faster, since we just want to learn the principles and not how to create a full app. So you can use this app, you can take this principle and create many things. You can maybe create your own SaaS, give it some unique features, and you can maybe learn the principles of JavaScript and Node.js using this. So but today we're not going to be focusing on modularizing and making clean HTML code. We're just focusing on the URL shortener side. So simply we want to take in the button, because when the user clicks the button we want to do something. So it's just document dot query selector, and we want to select the button, right? So we want to just say, actually let's make it short and say btn. Then we want the inputs, post document dot query selector, and say inputs. Since there are only one button and one input, this is fine. One more thing is that we need a paragraph to display the URL that we send back from the server side, okay, from the backend. So let's say result equals document dot query selector p. Now that we have every element that we need, what we can start is so btn dot add event listener. Okay, so actually this will be a click event. So when the user clicks on the button, we're going to be doing something. What is that something? It's very basic actually. we want to do is, first of all, we want to send a request, a post request to the previous path we just created on the server side. So I'm going to say const response equals await. So meaning if we say await here, we need to say async here, right? So since we're going to be handling fetch, we need to make this asynchronous. So to what's route, it's just forward slash so forward slash, right? It's the root route, so no problem there. And we want to say, my formatting is broken for some reason. And in the root route, we want to have a method of post, and in order for us to post something using the standard JavaScript fetch library, fetch API, we need to provide some extra information that will be done in the form of headers. So the main header we're going to be using is the content type, which tells the browser what type of content, what type of information to send. We want to send application slash JSON, or basically just JSON. So we want to send JSON content, so we have to give it the content type application JSON. So next we want to give it the body, meaning if you remember, what are we actually sending? So we're sending, if you remember, uh, a long URL, right? So JSON dot stringify, and we have to give it the long URL. So here we're gonna say long URL, and the long URL in the form of results dot value. So from the input we're getting the value. Sorry, not the result actually, the inputs. So the input dot value, from the input we want to get the value, and that's all we want to do. So finally we want to console.log. Actually, let's create a constant for it. Const data equals response await response.json, right? So after that, it's basic. We just want to console.log data. So now we can save, and hopefully, if everything works, actually, we just, instead of console.log in it, we can do something with it. We can say result, the paragraph tab, if you remember, result dot text content, right? Text content, we can give it the value of the data. So just save, and let's refresh here, and hopefully there's no error this side. Now we can paste in the long HTML, the long uh, link from the previous. Here we have, so let's just copy this and we can paste it here. This is a long URL, as you can see. Now let's click submit, and we have this shortened URL. Now if we decide to open this or go to this tab, we can see that it says cannot get /fuhm, right? So that's because we are not mapping it. We are storing the data, but we are not doing anything with it. So the final step is for us to complete that. So this is very easy actually. What we have to do is say app.get, and from the roots path we want to take an ID. This is request parameters in express.js, the express.js. This is basic express. I'm hoping you understand this. So we can say const id equals request.params.id, right? From the request parameters we're getting the ID, and we're mapping. So we have mapped it with a long full or long URL, if you remember. Here we say shortened URLs. Here, yeah, say shortened URLs dot push long URL and ID. So we want to find this long URL based on this ID. So simple. We're going to just say const long URL equals short shorten URLs, the full array dot find. From that array we want to find something. Let's say URL. Well, URL dot long URL equals, sorry, equals the ID. URL dot ID equals the ID. So we are basically finding an URL mapping where the IDs are similar. That's basically it. So after that, we are done. We just want to response the redirect. So this is a method in the response body of Express where we can redirect a user to some place. So we just want to redirect the user to long URL. So that's pretty much it. Now let's save and go back. So what we did is we took the ID and we find the associated long URL and we redirected it to the long URL. So let's just refresh this and try this again. So let's paste this here, the long URL, if you remember. Then click submit. Now we have this shortened version. Now if we go to this, it says undefined. Okay, now let's see why it says undefined. Okay, simply let's just console log this long URL, right? Just to check what's happening. So click submit, open the link, a new tab, and it says undefined. Okay, here, this is the long URL, right? And it says undefined, undefined. So why is that happening? Since okay, the problem is that we are this is not actually the wrong URL. To get the wrong URL, we have from the list, or from the shortened list, we are finding the one that matches the ID, and after taking that, we have to say dot long URL. Okay, we weren't taking, we were accepting the full URL and the full object and not only the long URL. That's my bad. Sorry. Now we can retry this. So let's just refresh. Let's just paste this here and submit. Now we have this one. Hopefully this should work. And after a bit of time, it should redirect us. So perfect. So everything is working perfectly. So this is a blog from the Medium. You can see that the URLs here are the same, right? From the one, but we are not writing all that. We're just sending this. So if you aim to create a SaaS like this, what you need to do is buy a short domain, right? So one of the most popular ones for URL shortening is bit.ly. They did this strategically because .ly is the shortest possible URL you can get, because the shortest is 2 letters, and bit is also the shortest domain name, right? Because it's 3 letters, and I don't think you can go like 2 and 1. So that's the reason so you can buy this short URL, and you can say, instead of localhost dot something, we can say bit.ly and 4 letters, right? So this will make it easier to share links and do stuff. So you have now the knowledge to do whatever you want or create a URL shortener. What you want to do with it is up to you. But I hope today you learned something about Node.js or programming in general. URL, maybe you understood how URL shorteners actually work, and the next time you see one, you have a bit more appreciation on how actually the techniques of making that occurred. So thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed and learned something from it. I will continue making content like this, and please, if you want to see a full Express tutorial series, please tell me in the comments. Uh, Thank you very much for watching. Until we meet next time. Goodbye.